Say good morning, everybody. We thank God for allowing us to see yet another day. We thank you for checking in on us as we study God's holy word for our Sunday school, February the 5th, 2023. We are in the last month of our winter quarter. Again, dealing with God and its responsibilities. Today's lesson is entitled Not Many Elite Called. Adult topic, wisdom and foolishness. Our children's topic says called into a special relationship. And I love, again, it's amazing how normally the children's topic brings it directly home. Again, called into a special relationship. When you're in a relationship, there should be not only a complete understanding, but there should be uh, a point to where uh, you don't question where each other stands. Again, not many elite. Today's lesson is First Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18 through 31. And I would suggest that you read the first 15 verses in that second chapter also, because it puts more meat on the bone from this lesson that we're studying. I know that says humans can be strengthened through maintaining relationship with those who provide good counsel. Again, good counsel. Where do you find true wisdom when faces life's challenges? Quote, guarantee wisdom. Knowing something. Sometimes the best thing that you can know is when not to say what you know. I'll leave that alone. It says God calls us into relationships with Jesus, who is the source of wisdom, understanding, and guidance. Having a relationship with Jesus, again, equivalent to getting a source of wisdom, understanding, and guidance. The answer to that is very simple. Again, Christ said that he was going to send us back the Comforter, and the Holy Spirit was to lead, guide, and to remind us. And if it's leading, guiding, and reminding us, that sounds a whole lot like getting wisdom, understanding, and guidance. Our objectives for the day is to contrast God's wisdom versus what is foolishness, the foolishness of people. Affirm the wisdom of following Jesus Christ and perform actions accordingly as they are strengthened by Jesus. I love that second one. Again, affirm the wisdom that we gain, that we get from following Jesus Christ. Again, think about, and I ask especially young people all the time, those who are in high school and those who are going off to college, ask yourself, are you a leader or a follower? And I know most people, want to demand that I'm a leader. I'm a leader. Well, there's nothing wrong with being a good follower if you're following somebody. I wish I had some friends. If you're following the right folks, again, and same thing. It's there's nothing worse. And I tell people again, we're getting ready to have elections in our state convention, our national convention, and I tell people all the time, you can have a weak leader if he has a very strong cabinet, members who are around him who are very strong. And then you can have a strong leader who has a weak cabinet if he's able to carry them. But you can't have a weak leader who is being followed by weak folks. Mm-hmm. Again, our lesson we're dealing with it says again, not many elite called. Our lesson again is coming from First Corinthians verses 18 through 31. Our first point, our first outline says the message of the cross, foolishness versus power. Again, the message of the Foolishness versus power. When we look into this lesson today, before we jump into our first outline coming from verse 18, let's get a little background of what's going on in the lesson. First of all, we need to understand that Paul is the author of Corinthians, first as well as second. And it's not just first and second, but there are actually three letters written by Paul to the church at Corinth. They were so many pagan gods and false teachers in that area that they believed so strongly on the Grecian philosophers and their teachings that, as we see in today's lesson, worldly wisdom seemed to put a shadow over the gospel of the Lord. It got to the point where you had people, and that's why when you look at the title of the lesson, when it deals with about not many elite called, the lesson is trying to show us that be careful of those who seek after worldly knowledge and think because of what they have gained worldly. In our churches today, and again, by no means think that I'm throwing shade on higher education. Again, as I said earlier, there's a difference between just knowledge and wisdom. Sometimes wisdom is I know when to use what I know, when to say what I know. Knowledge, on the other hand, folks who think they know everything because you got some alphabets behind your name, but you don't know how to use the knowledge that God has given you.
Classroom can't teach you everything.
And thank you, sir. The classroom cannot. I never forget when I applied to teach in Orange County in the class that I had to attend. At the end of the class, at the end of the week of being going through all the structures we went through, how to set up your syllabus, how to set up your class structure, how to do all of this. The instructor asked a very important question: why do you think you are qualified to be a teacher, and what it is that you want to teach? So everybody, well, I got a master's in mathematics, I got a master's in this, I got a doctorate in that, and everybody's going over all of these big philosophical reasons why they're going to be great teachers. And it came to little old me, that TSU guy, and I simply said, I have the heart that Sidney Poitier had in the movie To Serve with Love. And everybody turned around to look and say, what the heck is he talking about? I said, Sidney Poitier realized in the middle of trying to teach these kids that these, number one, are no longer just kids. They're human beings. They're people who are about to go out into the real world. And what we're teaching them is not going to help them in the real world. So he had to teach them life. And I said, as a teacher, your job, same thing in our church, your job is to connect heaven with earth in the church. Your job in the school is to be able to connect the book to what is going on in reality, what's going on in the world, in society. Now, teaching me ergonomics, teaching me trigonomics, teaching me calculus. When people say, well, what am I learning calculus for? I'm never going to use these equations in the real world. Now you got to be able to teach them how. If you learn this, you learn how systems work, you learn how to program certain things. Now, when life throws a curveball at you, you're able to take some of not the numbers, how to add this and that, but you're able to know, I know how to equate things. I know how to quantitate. I know how to add and divide good versus bad. Now I can handle what's going on in the world. Again, our lesson today is it wants us to understand. Paul is saying you guys are getting vaccinated by looking at all of these great philosophers, and you want to be like them, and you're listening to what they're saying life is versus what the gospel of God is telling you. This is what God is saying. Again, our first outline, the message of the cross, foolishness versus the power. Verse 18 says, for the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved, it is power of God.
It says, what is the preaching of the cross? Paul would also write that the gospel was like a sweet savior to those who believed, but to those who were lost, it was a condemning word. 2 Corinthians 2:15. I told you got to check that second chapter out because it helps you back up what's going on in chapter 1. In 1 Corinthians 2:14 says, to those who are unchurched, when we say we are saved because he died, what does that sound like to them? I'm saved because another man was crucified. People who don't know the words of God, that sounds crazy. Washed in the blood. You know, again, let somebody put a gallon of blood in your washer. How clean are your clothes gonna get? To us that believe, this is the purpose of God sending his son. It says, for the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness. In other words, those who aren't saved, those who don't have a relationship with Christ, when you're talking about the cross being a saving mechanism, to them, that sounds like you crazy, man. Listen, Acts the 27th chapter, when Paul is preaching to King Agrippa and to Festus. Festus says, Paul, much knowledge has made you lose your mind, man. Talking about how this man died and how he got up, and now he's the savior of the world. You don't lost your mind. Again, it says, but unto us which is saved, it is the power of God. What is your salvation based on? Your faith. My faith is based on the fact that, again, come on, Baptist preacher, at the end of the sermon, he died, but don't leave him dead. Early Sunday morning, he got up. Again, the message of the cross is that, again, that old hymn, I think it's hymn number 79 or 69, at the cross, where I first saw the light and my burdens rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight. But to those who don't have that relationship, it sounds like foolishness. How much do you believe today that the cross is a saving mechanism? How many of us honestly believe in the power of the cross? Again, it says the message of the cross versus foolishness. Foolishness versus power. With us, the cross is power. With them who are lost and don't have a relationship with God, it sounds like foolishness. I'm going to call on the Lord. No, you need to call a lawyer. You need to call somebody to help you. No, I'm going to call on the Lord. Again, old saints, I will trust in the Lord until I die. But you're going through something right now. You're catching hell right now, but I'm going to still trust. Again, to those who don't know Christ, that sounds like you don't lost your mind. You better find somebody that can help you, man. No, I know somebody. The B section says the results of God's wisdom. It says, for it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and I will bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? Have not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? For after that, in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. it pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. It says Paul argued that salvation is based upon God's power, not upon the wise words of philosophers. I never forget, back in the old days, Anaya, when I was in middle school, we actually, Peggy, school would start before we did the pledge and all that other stuff. We have a moment of silent prayer, and then we'd have a thought. And I never forget, one day the thought was, or the saying was, that in this little town, they had a bulletin board in the middle of the square, and they put all of the key information on that bulletin board. And somebody put on there that you can reach God by praying on the bulletin board. But there was this guy in town named Bill, and Bill was an atheist, and Bill hated the fact that somebody put on the bulletin board about God. So Bill stuck a note up on the bulletin board. Boop. Stop calling God. God is dead. And everybody in the town gathered around and they read that note, and they was like, ooh, wow. Bill said that we should stop calling God because God is dead. The next morning, there was a crowd surrounding the bulletin board again. And everybody was rushing, trying to see what on the bulletin board. And there was a note bigger than the bulletin board that said, don't call on Bill. Bill is dead. Signed God. Again, the wisdom of man. There used to be a guy who, I don't know how he got the title, but they said he was the smartest man on earth. Guy named Hawkins. If you ever watched the show Big Bang, that was Sheldon's man, because he thought that Stephen Hawkins was all of that. He wanted to meet Stephen Hawkins. He was the one of the smartest men supposedly on the world in the world. But he had a deformity. He was stuck in a wheelchair. He had some kind of muscular disease where he couldn't move. So he had to speak through using his eyes on the computer. But he was supposed to be the smartest man in the world. And he actually put out a book saying that stop believing in this fictitious God. There is no God. That man is just like a computer. Eventually, you will run your program and your program will end, and that will be the end of you. But I'm so glad that Stephen Hawkins' program ended and God is still running. And I'm so glad that one day Stephen Hawkins is going to get up and be able to walk, and he's going to have to face God. And God going to say, you remember what you said about me? I may have helped you, but I let you stay in your deformed state just so you can, when you get into this new state, you have to give me the praise and the honor that I deserve. Again, the Bible says, in that day, every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess. Stephen Hawkins got to say, you know what, you are God. And then God gonna say, I don't know you, so go on about your business. Again, the result of God's wisdom. When we look at the B section, notice now what Paul is saying. Paul is basically quoting Isaiah 29 and 14, which says, therefore, behold, I will proceed to do a marvelous work among the people, even a marvelous work and a wonder, for the wisdom of their wise men shall perish. In other words, God is saying, I'm going to take the smartest people on this earth and basically show them how dumb they are. He says their understanding that will perish, and the understanding of the prudent men shall be hidden. In other words, God is saying, you will see just how smart you are not. This is what Paul is trying to tell the church of Corinth. He's saying, let me go back to the Old Testament. The same God that said, this is what I'm going to do, it's the same God today. I've been amazed all of my life when people say, oh, that if man ain't careful, man is going to destroy this world. You can't destroy what you didn't make. Talk to me, Jesus. I hear Jesus telling Pilate point blank, you don't have no power, only the power that I give you. You can't take my life and what unless I lay it down. Come on, man. Says Paul affirms that God in his wisdom saves people by the way of the cross, and no other way can you be saved. Look at how God is still dumbfounding people. When the doctors and all of the technology says you got stage 4 cancer. And then within days, if not hours, they redo the scans and there's nothing. They're trying to figure out what happened. I heard a preacher say, Sister Pinky, that his mom had, I forgot, stage 3 cancer. I forgot where it was at. And they had gotten the family together. They had prayer. They called in all of the other preachers that they knew and had prayer. The daddy was a very prominent pastor in Jacksonville. They had prayer for his mother because she was going into surgery and it didn't look good. But because of being so prominent, they were able, with their money and insurance, to call in one of the top-notch surgeons to operate on his mother. And when they took her in, before they cut her, they ran another scan on her. And he said they're sitting out in the waiting room and they noticed that the expert, the surgeon, came walking out and he was upset. He didn't even stop and say nothing to the family. He just stormed by them. They sitting there saying, what is mama okay? What's going on? He said, then finally the her regular oncologist came out and they asked him, they said, we saw the expert, the specialist that you guys flew in, walk by, storm by, upset, mad about something. What's going on? Is our mother, is my wife, if she okay? And he said, well, he's upset because when we ran the second scan, we couldn't find nothing. He's upset that he can't go in and perform surgery and save her. So now he lost all of his glory because he could not save her, because now all of a sudden, mysteriously, the cancer went away. Somebody else did surgery before he could get there. I wish I had some church folks. Again, the result of God's wisdom. Paul is saying God will dumbfound the wise. He will make the wise look what foolish. So when we look at our C outline, verses 22 to 25, it says, for the Jews require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified. Unto the Jews, it becomes a stumbling block. And then to the Greeks, it's foolish. Again, for the Jews require a sign. It says the Jews wanted a miraculous sign to prove that Jesus is the great Messiah. But instead, they saw him crucified. They saw, Peggy, again, let's back up some years. There was a star that appeared in the east. And instead of the star sitting on the palace, instead of the star sitting on the seat of justice and power, the star sat over a stable. Instead of finding the Messiah in the palace. Oh, y'all watched the TV when Prince George was born. sign on the gate of Buckingham Palace announcing his birth. When the other little kids were born, they put a sign on the gate announcing their birth. Prince, princess has been born. But here is not on the gate of the palace, but it says the star was over. The Jews are looking for the Messiah, the promise, the second coming of David. And instead of being in the palace, he's in the stable. Can you imagine how the bed, the crib in the palace looked? But the Messiah is laying in a hog trough. Again, when you look at TV, you see how when they took little Prince George to have him baptized, I think he wore the same outfit that Queen Elizabeth had worn when she was a baby, and how Charles wore, and how his daddy wore. All of these people wore these things, and now you look at the Messiah, the King of the world, is wrapped in some rags. Mary didn't have a Samsonite. I don't even know, do they make Samsonite suitcases anymore? And I don't know what the, Peggy, all of my kids, I've seen all of my kids, Anthony, Candace, Alex, when they go somewhere, you know, in our family, come on, black folks, it's Black History Month. We always had that one set of luggage in the house. Whenever somebody went somewhere, they'll call, Peggy, you still got that luggage? They come by and borrow it. Didn't nobody buy no luggage. We just had one set of luggage that the whole family used. Because the whole family never go nowhere about it together. So it was always one person going somewhere. So, but my kids, Peggy, they got these new fancy suitcases now that you pull the handle up and they got the wheels turn each, they roll and they just walk their suitcases, they don't carry suitcases, though. They just walk them around. I'm like, I ain't got it like that. Mary didn't have anything like that. So whatever rags were laying around in the stable, she wrapped Jesus in. And the Jews are saying, ain't no way in the world. We're looking for some signs. That can't be the Messiah. Then Paul says to the Greeks, it sounds like food. To the Jews, it became a stumbling block because they couldn't get over it. But to the Greek, the Gentiles, the newcomers, it sounded like foolishness. Why? Because we are so learned. When folks come to church and they say, the preacher's up there hooping, that's beneath us. The deacons are praying and they're talking about, God this and God the Father that. That's beneath us. We don't need all of that, in our church. Again, Black History Month. I never forget. I heard Martin Luther King say one time that there was a drastic difference between Dexter Avenue and Second Baptist. And for those who don't know, Martin pastored Dexter Avenue. Dexter Avenue sat on the main street facing the Capitol. You can stand on the steps of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church and look and see the capital of Alabama. Second Baptist was around the corner. History says that when they got ready to build Dexter, again, there was a problem and there was a split in the church. Folks, you know how we do in black churches. So the folks who left went around the corner, bought a little piece of property, but their property didn't face the main street. Their property was on a dirt road. And that church was known by its nickname, not Second Baptist, but it was known as the Brick by Brick Church. What do you mean by brick by brick press? Well, the members would buy bricks. Every week you buy 2 or 3 bricks, and it took them a year or two to get enough bricks to build a church. And the church faced the dirt road. And as Martin Luther King would say, that when you come to Dexter Avenue, he said, I don't preach at Dexter. I teach at Dexter. I go around the corner to Abernathy's church and I preach at Abernathy's church. He said, at Dexter, I lecture, but I go around to Abernathy's church and I can squall. I can go have church around at Abernathy's church. Because see, them folks, they go crazy at second. At Dexter, you have to carry yourself matter. Again, Paul is saying that to the Greeks, those who studied Socrates and, and all of the other great philosophers, that 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 this thing called crucifixion, it can't be a way of salvation. So again, when we look at it, it says for the Greek, they considered the whole idea of crucifixion as being a part of salvation mere foolishness. It was characteristic of the Greek philosophers to seek schemes and philosophies and not gospel over religion that depended on they depended on human wisdom and understanding. Our last outline is we hurry. The D section says the reason for God's wisdom, verses 26 through 31. I'm gonna show you something. I need you to understand this. God never allows us an opportunity to think it's us. You lost me, preacher. Again, let me say it again. God never allows us the opportunity to think it's us. Who woke you up this morning? It wasn't the alarm clock. And let me scare you a little bit. Have you ever went to sleep, been in a real deep sleep, and you tried to wake up and move, but you couldn't? I need to remind you that it ain't you. I tell every now and then when I was teaching, when I would get with these kids that was too smart, I would tell them, you know how look at how God makes the human body. If you wanted to kill yourself stop by stop breathing, you can't do it. If you held your breath long enough, I ain't gonna breathe. I'm gonna kill myself. The human body would knock you out so it could start breathing. I'm gonna starve myself to death. The human body would actually shut down organs that it does not need and start feeding off of them to keep the rest of the body alive. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you. There's stuff that God reminds you that you ain't all that you think you are. It says, "For ye see your calling, brethren, how that not many wise men after the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called." Look at the Bible, throughout the Bible, at who God has chosen. And then I need you to write this down in your notes. Check out Hebrews the 11th chapter, verses 6 through 11. In most Bibles, it says that is the roll call, the honor roll of faith. Abraham was not special, but God chose him. Sarah was an old lady, but yet God chose her. Jacob was a trickster, a liar, a scheming conniver, but yet God chose him. David was the least of Jesse's boys, smelling like good old fresh outdoors with sheep stuff between his toes, but yet God chose him. Again, when you look at who God chose, it was never special people. It was never the smartest or the greatest. It was always just anybody. Have you ever asked yourself why you? What made me so special that God decided to save me? What makes me so good that God showed his favor on me? Again, it says, but God have chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. Uh, who was the first black president in America? Barack Obama. What made Barack special? Mixed marriage, daddy left his mama, mama on welfare, got to fill out student loans to go to school. What made him so? Again, God will choose that which will confound the wise. It says, and God have chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. Again, Black History Month. Martin Luther King was barely 5'4". Little ugly black preacher. Again, come on, talk to me, Matt King Carter. Matt King Carter would call it. Matt King Carter had no problem calling it like this. Matt King Carter said, "He was ugly. That nigga could preach." Again, y'all said, don't talk about Martin like that. Martin was a beautiful man. No, Martin was a little knob with a big old nose. But again, look at who God chooses. Harriet Tubman, you look at Harriet Tubman picture. Come on, somebody. Jock, I ain't gonna go there. I'm gonna leave it alone. I ain't gonna go there, Jock. I'm praying for that school right now. I ain't gonna go there. That wasn't a beautiful woman. Sister Ducksworth said, go on. But look at who God chooses. Y'all gonna don't get mad at me. That's not a controversy. It is what it is. Again, it says God have chosen the weak things of the world and confound the things which are mighty and base things of the world, the thing which are despised. You don't believe me? What does the Bible say? Jesus says that he is what the stone that the master builder what rejected. Don't get mad at the preacher. I'm just telling you what the Bible says. Think about who again. What did the children of Israel do when they chose Saul? Give us the biggest, the tallest, the best looking man of all of us, and we want to make him the king. And look what God did. God went and got the youngest, the shortest, the ruddiest, the dirtiest out of the field and made him the king. I wish I had some praying folks. Again, when God chose Gideon, Gideon wasn't on the battlefield. Gideon wasn't no mighty soldier of valor. Gideon was hiding in the wine press, threshing out wheat. Again, look at God. I wish I had some folks that y'all still mad at me because I said Martin wasn't good looking. It says that no flesh. Listen, this is what God does. It says that no flesh should glory in His presence. You can't brag about who you are. You can't talk about how great you are. I can choose anybody. And the sad thing is, I chose you. Says, but of Him are ye in Christ, who of God is made unto us wisdom and righteousness and sanctification and redemption. Because of who Jesus is, I am all of that and a bag of chips now. Mm. That according as it is written, he that glorieth, let him glory in the Lord. I wish I had some praying folks. Have you ever really looked at who God called and who God has chosen? Even more so, again, have you ever looked in the mirror and just asked the question, why me? What did you see in me, God? What made me so special? When you want or need it to be about you, you lose sight of God's great. It says, according to verse 26, most members of the Corinthian congregation were not from the upper class of society. Neither were these Christian philosophers. The Christians at Corinth were from the lowest status of society. They were common people who did not hold positions of power and did not have wealth and influence. But Paul wanted them to understand that God can use whomever God decides to use. I'm messy, Lord. That's all right. I've come up short, Lord. That's all right. I've had some mistakes in my life. That's all right. I'm covered by the blood. And I tell folks all the time, God does not see my flaws. All he sees is the blood. That's why when we go back to the beginning of the lesson, when it talks about the cross, because of the blood that was shed on Calvary, everything looks the same. It looks like blood. And that blood looks like, as Paul just told us, it looks like redemption. It looks like justification. It looks like salvation. It looks like Jesus. And as long as you look like Jesus, the Father can't help but to be happy. So again, if we look at the beginning of our topic of our lesson, not many elite called. I'm glad that I don't serve a God that just wants the uppity ups, the big hats, because I would never fit in. But I'm glad that my God chose to save a wretch like me. Talk to me, Paul. Paul said, I am a chief amongst sinners. Ain't nobody worse than me. But yet, I said, but yet, God was able to save me. Aren't you glad you serve a but yet God? Ah, why are you so happy? Because I serve a but yet God. Why you can smile when folks talk about you like a dog? Because I serve a but yet God. Oh yeah, I'll admit I was all of that and more, but God. I deserve to be talked about like a dog, but God. Yeah, again, the children topic says called into a special relationship. Because of this relationship I got, there's a Peggy as I wrap up. There, again, I ain't gonna watch it. I'm gonna just let y'all know I ain't watching it. The Grammys come on tonight. The Oscars, I think, come on later on in the month or next month. All of these big, shows were, award shows. You ever notice that when the cameras before the show, Jessica, when folks are out there and they're going down the red carpet, who gets to walk down the red carpet? Is it just the stars? See, if you got a relationship with somebody, you get to walk down the carpet too. I wish I had somebody know what I'm talking about. It's the same thing when a couple years ago, uh, when Barack was president, Shaquille O'Neal talks about how he went to Washington, Peggy, and drove up to the White House. Drove to the gate, said the guard stopped and said, "Can I help you?" He said, "I'm here to see not the president, but I'm here to see Barack." Guard said, "Hold on a second, you're not on the list. Just tell Barack that Shaq is here." Excuse me, Mr. Shaq, you're not on the list. And Shaq said he sat there, he watched other cars come in and out. He like, but Shaq, again, you don't have clearance because you don't have a relationship that those folks coming in and out got you not on the list. I wish I had some folks to understand what I'm talking about. Now, think about it. Now, Malia and Shasha, little friends from school, they never had to stop at the gate. They just walked in. Why? Because they had a relationship. I wish I had some friend folks. If you got a relationship with Christ, Jesus said you can ask the Father anything in my name, and He will. Uh, if you got a relationship, it don't matter how bad, how poor, how nasty, how messed up you are. If you got a relationship with the Master, everything will be all right. We thank God for you. May God bless you. May God keep you. Is our prayer. We hope that we've been able to share something with you that will help you grow a little stronger, a little closer to Christ on this journey called life. Again, be ye not just hearers, but doers of his most said word. May God bless you. May God keep you. Is our prayer.